everyone. In the course on global trade and commerce, today we will see all the international groupings in the world, including BRICS, G20 and also the multilateral financial institutions led by the IMF and the World Bank, and how they are performing and whether they are relevant in today's world. So let me start with BRICS. What is BRICS? BRICS consists of 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Now in 2001, the then chairman of Goldman Sachs, Mr. Jim O'Neill, designed this term BRICS, and it was basically the coming together of all the 5 important emerging superpowers in the world. And actually the term was coined by somebody called Rupa Purushottamam, who was a research assistant in the original report. So this is what is the origin of BRICS. Now, how big is BRICS as a regional grouping? Does it have any clout in the world economy? If you see the contributions of BRIC, the BRIC accounts for nearly 27% of global GDP, 18% of global trade, and nearly 42% of the entire global population resides in these 5 countries. So you can imagine the scale at which this group operates. Now, what are the ambitions or the targets of this group? By 2050, each of these group members hopes to achieve something. China aims to be a manufacturing superpower of the world, India aims to be the service superpower, and Brazil and Russia aim to be dominant suppliers of raw materials. So this is what the scale of the BRICS is going to look like in the coming years. What is the objective of BRICS? Basically, it was formed to promote mutual trade and investment, to enhance market access opportunities for each other, and to strengthen macroeconomic policies, and to strive to inclusive growth and eradicate poverty across the region. So this was the objective with which the BRICS was set up. It also had the objective of coming together for technical cooperation, education. There is also a proposal to set up a BRICS university and to seek cooperation with non-BRICS countries as well, and to help and assist developing countries to gain advantage in trade and climate change negotiations. So these were some of the objectives with which the BRICS was formed, and the aspirations of each of the member countries was taken into consideration before forming the charter of BRICS. Now, what are the achievements of this organization? First, as I told you, it is expanding trade. Since the BRICS has come into power, the share of the share of BRICS in world exports has increased from 9% to 17% during 1996 to 2008, and also the major achievement of the BRICS groupings has been the setting up of the new development bank, that is the NDB, which is now currently led by Mr. K.V. Kamath, who was the ex-head of the ICICI in India. So setting up a new development bank was considered to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in the BRICS countries. Basically, it was to help infrastructure project development in each of the BRICS countries that the new development bank was created, and it also works in the area of clean energy, sustainable development, transport infrastructure, irrigation, etc. So these are some of the areas in which the new development bank focuses on. BRICS is basically, what are the achievements of the BRICS? As I told you, first is the development of the new development bank, and also one of the major achievements is the setting up of the contingent reserve arrangement, that is the CRA, to provide mutual financial assistance to each of the countries in the grouping provided there is a global financial crisis. As you know, these days financial crises have become a little too frequent, and it is the objective of this contingent reserve arrangement to help countries to get out of the financial crisis, and also to ensure that BRICS is the new stakeholder in the 21st century negotiations, that BRICS countries set the global agenda and have a greater say in global economic affairs. So these have been some of the achievements of the BRICS. Now, how often do the BRICS countries meet? They do keep meeting through the ministerial level talks, but actually the BRICS heads of countries meet during the annual summits. Now, there are several summits which take place every year. In 2019, the summit took place in Brazil, and the next BRICS summit, that is the 12th BRICS summit, is scheduled to be held at St. Petersburg in Russia from 21st to 23rd July 2020. So whether it will happen or not is a big question. It could be a virtual affair given the pandemic, but definitely the next summit is on in St. Petersburg, Russia. Now, many people say that the BRICS is no longer BRICS, it is broken BRICS. That is, many countries in the BRICS economies are not doing well, Russia is not doing well, Brazil is not doing well, China and India have their own set of problems. Therefore, many people have started to call BRICS as the broken BRICS. And maybe it is true to a certain extent because of the failure of BRICS. Now, why some people say that BRICS is a failure? Because of the ongoing tussle between India and China, the border disputes that they have, and of course the lack of common understanding between the BRICS partners is also considered to be one of the reasons for the failures of the BRICS. And also the obvious dominance of China in the grouping is constantly criticized, and the fact that BRICS countries have not been able to negotiate and focus on issues like terrorism and climate change also adds to their woes. So what is the future roadmap for the BRICS countries? Are they here to stay? Yes, very much. They do have a say in global affairs. They have to identify issues of common interest, and they would like to re-establish themselves and get rid of the tag of broken BRICS. So, for BRICS to remain relevant in the next few years, they have to take a lot of initiatives and opportunities and get together, and they have to start working on the lines of the OECD. Now, another major important grouping in world trade today is of course the G20. It was an offshoot of the global financial crisis that took place in the year 2008, 2009. It was basically a policy coordination grouping which came together to deal with the financial crisis. It has 20 countries in it, and the objectives of the BRIC countries, as I told you, is basically policy coordination between member countries to achieve global economic stability and sustainable growth, promote financial regulations, and like every other international grouping, the G20 also has its summit every year. This year the G20 summit is going to be in Riyadh, and it will be chaired by the Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz. Now, what are the achievements of the BRIC countries? As I told you, they have been very effective in dealing with the global financial crisis of 2007-8. They have increased the lending capacity of the IMF, and of course, the fact that they have provided nearly $1.1 trillion aid for financial aid to the global economy during the crisis is an important achievement of the BRICS countries. Now, has the G20 been effective during the pandemic, the corona pandemic? Yes, global cooperation is at its peak. The G20 has been active in promoting global cooperation to help countries tide over the pandemic, and the G20 leaders have pledged nearly $5 trillion into the global economy to limit job and income losses due to the pandemic. So, as I said, now the next summit is being looked forward to by many countries because they think that the G20 is the ideal platform to come out with policies to deal with the crisis, to focus on developing a vaccine to come out of the corona crisis. Another two important institutions in the world are the IMF and the World Bank, the multilateral institutions. The International Monetary Fund is an organization of 187 countries set up basically to facilitate international trade, monetary cooperation, reduce poverty, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth in countries. So, basically it has two functions. One is surveillance of countries, and second is lending to countries during balance of payment difficulties, technical assistance and training in the area of expertise. Another important multilateral organization is of course the World Bank, which has its headquarters in Washington DC, established on July 1st, 1944 during a conference of 44 countries in the Bretton Woods. It also has the same objective, more or less. Both the organizations work in a similar fashion. The World Bank also has the objective of reducing poverty and improving standards of living. Now, the bank also offers two types of loans. One are investment loan that are support for economic and social development projects, and development policy loans for quick dispersing finance to support countries during a crisis. Now, the World Bank and some of these multilateral institutions, including the IMF, have been heavily criticized because though the fact that they represent 186 countries, it is a few developed countries which kind of call the shots in the World Bank. Always the president of the World Bank is from the United States, and the president of the IMF is from the European Union. So, though poverty alleviation is the basic objective of the bank, it seems that the bank has been reduced to a lending institutions with high indebtedness exploited poor countries. So this is why the World Bank and the IMF are under a scanner, but nonetheless they continue to be important multilateral organizations along with the international groupings like G20 and BRICS, which have a good role to play in the global trade and global economy. Thank you.